Yuntao concurred. He turned to Xun Xiaoyan and declared, "You will receive an excellent rating for this assessment." No sooner had Li Yuntao spoken than a wave of discontent erupted from the nearby freshmen. Her mech has collapsed. How can she possibly receive an excellent rating? They protested. Today, fewer than 10 individuals had achieved such a score. Huang Yinju, who typically excels, merely earned a good despite his mech's minor mishaps. So why was Xun Xiaoyan awarded excellence? I want an excellent rating too. It adds 10 credits. Li Yuntao, visibly irritated, stood up and glared at the raucous students. Am I the assessor, or are you? If you are so capable, perhaps I should step aside. Do you know what a Wu-style leap entails? If you had dedicated even a fraction of your effort to studying mech piloting, I could also award you excellence. Anyone who dares to challenge this, come find me for a retest. The upperclassmen observing the scene erupted into laughter. Clearly, these freshmen had never faced the rigors of the academy's instructors. As soon as the freshmen heard the mention of a retest, they quickly bowed their heads in submission. After all, no student relishes examinations. Especially not under the stern gaze of the notoriously strict Li Yuntao. Unable to retaliate against the instructor, the crowd could only glare furiously at Xun Xiaoyan, meeting their gaze. She couldn't help but smile, recalling how she had once admonished students in a similar manner. With her smile, Li Yuntao's attention shifted back to her. Maintaining his perpetually stern expression, he cast his eyes over the completely incapacitated first-generation Zero mech. Xun Xiaoyan, this mech was meant for demonstration purposes. You are liable for its damages. What? I have to pay? Xun Xiaoyan was taken aback. Bai Jingyao looked at her sympathetically. Yes, you must compensate. Have you forgotten the first rule of the First Alliance Academy? The initial Zero mech on the training grounds must not be activated unless absolutely necessary. And any damages incurred require substantial compensation. This rule was inscribed by the founding principal of our esteemed academy, existing since the very first day of its establishment. Xun Xiaoyan could no longer maintain her composure. Who was the inaugural principal of the First Alliance Academy? She rapidly searched her mind for historical information. At that moment, Zhu Rui cheerfully recounted, I heard this mech was once piloted by the founder of mechs, Xun Xiaoyan. Back then, our first principal, Lin Jingguang, created quite a stir to acquire it from a host of historical figures. Instantly, a chubby figure emerged in Xun Xiaoyan's mind. How infuriating. It's that rascal Lin Jingguang's doing. Beside her, Bai Jingyao added, historical records indicate that the legendary mech master, Xun Xiaoyan, promised to leave the mech to Principal Lin after the conclusion of the war. This was contingent upon Principal Lin's assurance to Xun Xiaoyan that the mech would be displayed at the training grounds for the Alliance's children to admire and learn from. At that time, it was notably emphasized that it should remain at Training Ground 18, as its popularity and auspicious numerical significance were believed to attract wealth. I find these historical accounts rather dubious. How could the founding figure of mechs be so mercenary? Nevertheless, during the early days of the school, Principal Lin indeed managed to entice many students to enroll using this very mech. Alas, our academy has now fallen into decline. Even with Xun Xiaoyan's esteemed name backing us, we no longer possess the grandeur of centuries past. Oh, I just realized that your name, Xun Xiaoyan, is identical to that of the mech's founder. It seems you are indeed fated to this mech. Xun Xiaoyan couldn't help but twitch her lips. Was it Lin Jingguang who had deceived her, or had she deceived herself? She should never have heeded the flattering words of Lin Jingguang, agreeing to leave the mech in his care. Many sought her mech at that time, but Lin Jingguang was the most eloquent. She had never been particularly fortunate with finances, and Lin Jingguang had brought her a rather superstitious book, claiming that individuals like her, who struggled to hold on to money, needed to replenish their wealth. The book suggested that by performing good deeds and giving generously, one could restore their fortune. Thus, she selflessly donated the original mech to the school he established, believing it to be a noble act. Once the school was up and running, he placed the original mech at Training Ground 18, promising that for every student she aided, her luck and wealth would increase. Most importantly, Lin Jingguang argued that leaving the mech in a museum would be less beneficial than having it in the school, where it could serve a greater purpose. He assured her that the mech would not merely be a relic, but would allow every student the opportunity to experience it. In hindsight, Lin Jingguang indeed lived up to her trust. The mech remained well preserved at the training ground. However, where was her replenished wealth? Chapter 5. Who says wealth replenishment is ineffective? Li Yuntao glanced at Xun Xiaoyan, informing her that staff members would assess the mech's damage later, and a bill would be sent to her following the evaluation. Upon hearing this, Xun Xiaoyan understood that there was no turning back regarding the matter of compensation. The original identity she inhabited was that of an orphan, with tuition and living expenses entirely reliant on government subsidies. Moreover, she had rented a mech from a leasing shop to participate in the assessment today. This mech had already depleted her savings, not to mention that she had fainted during the assessment, and the medical expenses were still unpaid. With the additional burden of compensating for the academy's mech, her situation was becoming increasingly dire. However, she had funds. In her account from 300 years ago, there remained a sum of 500,000 star coins. She had always preferred to invest her modest wealth in materials, so her savings were not extensive. Yet, 300 years ago, 300,000 could purchase an original model mech. Nowadays, the original model mech was outdated, and she estimated that acquiring a new one would not exceed 100,000. Furthermore, the compensation for repair costs would likely amount to around 50,000. With this in mind, if she could access her original account, the debts she faced would be trivial. Li Yuntao observed Xun Xiaoyan's silence, and a surge of frustration welled up within him. He pointed at her once more, stating, "You are majoring in mecha combat, destined to become a mecha soldier. Look around you. Among all the students in this discipline, who else is like you, lacking even a personal mecha? Only by possessing your own specialized mecha can you adjust its data according to your physical condition and driving capabilities. Few would recklessly operate a mecha without proper data calibration. As you have done, the upcoming courses necessitate a mecha. Without one, what will you practice? Take advantage of the training break these few days and acquire a mecha. Even the most affordable model will suffice. Shen Jiayan nodded. Indeed, she needed a mecha. She resolved to retrieve her previous savings and find a way to obtain one. The other students could no longer contain their laughter. It was true, months into the semester, and there was still someone without a single mecha. Upon hearing their laughter, Li Yuntao turned to the other students, asking, who laughed the loudest just now? Who was the most vociferous in expressing their discontent? She is trained better than any of you without a mecha. What about you? You were just complaining about unfairness. Now, I offer you a chance. Anyone dissatisfied can retake the assessment. Is there anyone who wishes to be reassessed? After Li Yuntao's declaration, his stern gaze swept over all present. Although many felt aggrieved, none dared to voice their opposition. Noticing the silence, Li Yuntao coldly huffed, concluding that if no one intended to retake the assessment, this evaluation was now over. The students hung their heads. The last few assessors waited 5 minutes to confirm that no one was stepping forward to retake the exam before departing. As soon as the assessors vanished from sight, a collective sigh of relief escaped the crowd. Shen Jiayun, however, felt little relief. Her mind remained preoccupied with the matter of procuring funds. The moment the assessors left, she immediately lifted her foot to follow them out. This action drew the ire of those students who had been stifling their frustration at her reprimand from the assessors. Someone loudly mocked her, suggesting that it was shameless for her to be the first to leave after having caused others to endure her assessment for so long. Did her time matter more than anyone else's? Shen Jiayan cast a glance at the speaker, recognizing that he was referring to her. Yet, she found the trivial matter unworthy of her attention and continued walking without pause. The speaker, Lu Wenzhong, typically performed well academically, but he had failed to achieve a top score in this assessment. His frustration over Shen Jiayan's results had led him to shout a few times, earning him several glares from the instructors. Now, witnessing her indifferent demeanor ignited his anger. He felt that her glance was one of disdain and immediately blocked her path, exclaiming, "Are you feeling proud of your high score? Do you look down on us? Today's assessment was merely the simplest of tasks. I could have passed it with my eyes closed. But we all know your true level. You're nothing more than a novice, a mere pretender. Just because you passed this assessment without being expelled does not guarantee your luck will hold for future evaluations. The upcoming finals and combat assessments are what truly matter. Failing them will lead to expulsion as well. I am well aware of your financial constraints. You lack even a mecha of your own. Future assessments cannot be passed merely by borrowing someone else's mecha. I eagerly await the day you depart from the academy in disgrace." Shen Jiayan raised an eyebrow, remarking, "Your verbosity is truly tiresome. My performance in the final assessment is of no concern to you." She yearned only to return swiftly and withdraw the funds from her previous account. She had no desire to engage in petty disputes with a child. Lu Wenzhong was irked by Shen Jiayan's words. Gritting his teeth, he straightened his posture, declaring, "How can it not concern me? The final assessment is a team competition, and whoever ends up on your team will be unfortunate indeed. I stand in solidarity with all our freshman classmates. Let us not have you dragging everyone down as you did today." As Lu Wenzhong's words fell, nearby students began to fret. During routine training, there was little to worry about, but their greatest concern was the potential of being burdened by Shen Jiayan in the final assessment. The rules for team evaluations changed annually. Teams could either be self-selected or randomly assigned. Self-selection was manageable, but random assignments posed the risk of anyone being paired with Shen Jiayan. That would indeed be unfortunate. Even though Shen Jiayan had performed excellently in the assessment today, they believed it was merely the result of leniency from the instructors. After all, they recalled how Li Yuntao had initially given her a passing grade, only to have it changed upon the urging of other teachers. They couldn't help but worry that during the team competition, she might again falter, either by fainting or encountering mechanical failures. Someone sighed, pondering how the final assessments were still far off, praying that they would not be grouped with her. Another lamented, with several months remaining, "Let us all strive to improve our usual scores. Even if we falter in the final assessments, our regular scores will help boost our overall grades." Lu Wenzhong, brimming with self-satisfaction, cast a glance at Shen Jiayan, saying, "See how everyone reacts? Tell me again how your assessments do not concern me." "All right, I understand." Shen Jiayan nodded and promptly bypassed Lu Wenzhong. It was merely a final assessment, with several months to prepare. She would simply focus on her studies then. She could hardly fathom why a child from 300 years in the future was so worried. In her own school days, students tended to cram at the last minute. Unlike these overly anxious individuals, now, she intended to earn money to purchase a mecha, rendering Lu Wenzhong's concerns utterly irrelevant. Lu Wenzhong was left speechless, watching helplessly as Shen Jiayan walked away. He felt increasingly frustrated. As Shen Jiayan made her way back, she encountered groups of students laughing and playing, as well as others engrossed in their studies with their holographic devices. Memories seemed to blur. The faces of children from 300 years ago bore little of the joy seen today, overshadowed instead by a numbness to the pain of mortality. The sky was a brilliant blue now, the ominous shadows of bloodshed far removed from these students. Upon returning to her residence, she discovered that the accommodation provided by the academy was quite commendable. She resided in a single-room dormitory, complete with a communal robot for cleaning. Unfortunately, the original owner had been impoverished, and all she could find on the table were a few low-grade nutrient solutions. With a nutrient solution bottle clenched between her teeth, Shen Jiayan swiftly navigated her holographic device with one hand. After a brief interval of several minutes, she exclaimed with excitement, "I've done it." She successfully retrieved the funds from her original account. Not only did she recover the money within, but the total amount, including the principal and interest, exceeded 4